Welcome to Great Talking Entertainment. I am your host, KJ, and this is the podcast where I review movies and TV shows from all your favorite superheroes, including Marvel Comics, DC Comics, and much more. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Great Talking Entertainment official channel. Now let's go, baby. Hello and welcome back to the podcast on Great Talking Entertainment official channel only on YouTube. Now as I continue on from the new Disney Plus series Men97, this is episode 4 spoiler review. So if you have not been watching this series, pause this, give me a thumbs up because that would definitely help this channel grow. Share this with people who you know, whether they're your relatives, friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, just people who are into podcasts that reviews all the superhero shows, all the Star Wars, all the Marvels and DC Comics. Let them know about me, your boy KJ, the host, the CEO of Great Talk and Entertainment official channel. So this is a spoiler review. Y'all been warned. Let's get into it. This episode starts off with a potential feud between Magneto and Gambit as we see Gambit making some coffee for Rogue, but Magneto beats her to the punch and already made the coffee for her, even, had these spoons put in 3 cups of sugars because that's what type of sugar Rogue needs, or how many she needs in her coffee, and cream, I forgot. And this took Gambit to a point where he even made a comment where he was like, well, can you make me a cappuccino while you're at it, since you're taking orders? And he says no. But, we now we're kind of seeing this feud. Like, Gambit has a feeling that her and Magneto have something going on, and they're actually flirting and entertaining the idea of taking this to another level, while Gambit, for all these years, all he wants to do is be with Rogue. And he's willing to risk his life, like literally he's willing to risk his life, because her powers are so dangerous it can lead him to death. So he's willing to risk it all, like destroy it all. But Magneto, his mutant powers ability is so powerful that her powers can't affect him. And he has feelings for her, and that teases the idea of Rogue having feelings for Magneto. So Magneto is kind of like one-upping Gambit, because he's got the Reds, he's got the OG OP mutant powers that are just undefeatable unless you're a mutant that's on his level of powerness. So Gambit's got a lot of work to do, and he's got some competition. Well, not competition, but just one competition, and that's Magneto. But if you're familiar with this character, he's gonna fight for Rogue no matter what, and it's gonna cost him his life, literally. And it's always been like that with him. So I think they're going to play more into that, and I think this is just going to lead to the X-Men somewhat breaking up, is what I think on that part. And the reason why I think is I think we're getting to the point, I think Marvel's animation is going to, or this series, the people who are working on this series, Men97, I believe that they're gonna do the passing of the torch, where there's no original members, but only a few to keep it balanced. But we're gonna have new members, which is a younger generation of mutants that will become the new X-Men. And I think they're going to focus more on those. That's what I think. Because, again, I think they recognize is that once the X-Men hit the MCU in live action, that's what they're going to be focusing on. But this gives Marvel's animation to use other Marvel characters that are mutants and use them and tell great stories. That's what I think this is kind of leading up. And I'll explain why as I continue on what's been going on in this episode. So again, as they continue on, just having breakfast, we see the whole gang now. And we find out that Jubilee's birthday is today. But it'll be, when I upload this, it'll be the next day. So happy belated birthday to Jubilee, who has finally turned 18. But I've been watching that series since I was a kid. So to my mind, she's been 18 forever. Or 17, 16, 15 since forever. Because, again, I watched the original X-Men animation Saturday mornings as a young child. So to the new generation, Jubilee is freshly new 18. But not for me because I'm old. But it's cool that they finally canonized it in this animation that she's 18. And that's why I bring up the fact that I think that in the future X-Men animations that will have a different teams, a different generation, a younger members, characters that may not ever have the spotlight as much because of Wolverine, Cyclops, Beast, etc., etc. So I think that, we're going to have a brand new team. That's why I always believe Roberto could be the new leader of the X-Men. Because he's seeing it from a different view with everybody's problems in the way. And as you see in this episode, because as we continue on, Rogue asks, Jubilee, what do you want to do for your birthday? And she says, I know this, but she wanted to go to the arcade. But Magneto shut that down because he feels like that she will have plenty of birthdays and that she needs to focus on the main picture of this whole X-Men thing is the mutants are fighting for their civil rights, and that he feels like that she should be getting better using her ability because he knows that she can be a powerful mutant if she masterminds her craft of her abilities. Like, he knows in his heart that Jubilee can do some destruction. And this obviously upsets her. She's young. She just turned 18. So she's still a little brattish, a little childish, right? And that's where we see like her and Roberto are having this conversation about how adults just don't understand. She's just trying to vent out. And as soon as she's explained, Jubilee realizes that there's a game console in her room. And it's called Montendo. Montndo, which is just a rip-off to Nintendo. I honestly, I don't even know how Disney got the permission from Nintendo to even do that. That's, that had to cost some money. Because Nintendo just don't do that for real. Like, good luck with that. And what's crazy? It looked like a Super NES. Even the cartridge kind of reminded me of Sega a little bit, but it was like your 90s game console. No CDs. No yeet. No, I'm just kidding. But it was neat. But this game console literally kidnapped Roberto and Jubilee and put them in the game. And this game is so dangerous. And we found out that the one and only a familiar Marvel villain from the mutant X-Men universe or world, whatever you want to call it, Mojo. Now, Mojo was a big, fat, like, mutant creature, and he's so big and heavy, he has to use these mechanical, like, spider things to move, or tarantula, whatever it is, and it moves. He don't walk, he just presses the button, and it moves him where he needs to be, but he's a very smart mutant. But Mojo created this video game where it reminds me of at the X-Men's mansion where they have that training room where it's like virtual reality and the objects actually attack you and hurt you. But this one takes you to kill mode. And, you know, this whole thing, as Mojo explains, like any other villain would, that this is all memories from Jubilee. So every level she's doing, it's just a flashback of what she's done from the previous X-Men animation. And of course, we see her and Roberto facing some familiar faces. If you remember the X-Men animation, we see some characters, but they're not really the characters. They're just a 2D graphic. And I thought that was really cool. It just felt so 90s. And it was like a tribute to the 90s video games. And definitely people around my age are going to appreciate this episode because it brought back a good feeling of a good memory of just playing these games. Because there was an X-Men video game, and I do believe it was on the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, and maybe PlayStation 1, but I do know it was in 2D graphics at that time. So that was a callback, and that's what I loved about this episode, just because of that. And it was fun to watch, honestly. I'm just going to say this one was better than, episode 4 was better than episode 3 for sure. And as I continue on, we see a Magneto come to life, and it's Magneto in his OG outfit that people are familiar with, not the one he's currently wearing. But Alberto gets hit, and his life level is so low, like he's close to death. But luckily, there was a power-up coin. Jubilee used it and got him back. And then there's this heart moment where Roberto, and this is why I think he's going to be the leader of the next X-Men group, it's because he was like, look, we can't just be in this video game forever. Like, you got to grow up sometimes, or reality is going to hit you in the face. And after, she's seen Roberto get hurt and almost lose his life, she realizes that she learned. Now she's mature and she's growing from this. And of course, this whole episode is about Jubilee just growing up and becoming the adult version of Jubilee. And I just want to point out that we see this woman, like a cyberpunk woman, twice, and we don't know who she was, but she showed up in this video game made by Mojo, and we finally revealed, and it's the one and only, the older version of Jubilee. And they even have a moment before the big boss battle that the older Jubilee's like, man, I've been in this video game world for such a long time. There's no twists, there's no turns, there's no surprises. And she told the younger Jubilee that we're all watching is that life is more than this, and it's about growing up and going to the next level. And then they had the big boss battle between a giant version of Mojo, her and the older Jubilee, and Roberto finally defeat him and get out of there. And then the love connection happened, and Jubilee made the first move, and her and Roberto were making out, just like young people do. But and then the episode goes to Forge and Storm having dinner together, and it seems like they've been getting very close since episode 1. And this whole time, Forge is building a machine, like a tank, that could reverse the effect that Storm had when she lost her mutant powers, but it didn't work. It didn't really work. And before they got to that, there was scenes where they were horseback riding, communicating, just talking about stuff. And it just seems like Storm had a lot of hope, and we see that Storm has realized that she took her mutant powers or mutant DNA for granted, that she shouldn't ever feel ashamed to be different, that, having something like that taken away does not feel like her. Like, it's like she lost a bit of herself, a bit of her personality. She feels like she's doesn't exist no more because she lost her mutant powers, and now she regrets it. because we see that once the device didn't work, she broke down and started crying. And it was just tough. It was just really tough. But then we see that Forge tells Storm he just admitted that he literally created the blueprint of how to create a device that can, you know, take away the mutant powers and their abilities and destroy their DNA. And she was pissed off. But then they had this moment where he explained why he did it, and he was in a dark time. And then he even told Storm that he loved her. And I think she loved him back. I think they do have feelings for each other, which I still want to see Storm and Black Panther hook up. That's what I still want. But nevertheless, Storm leaves the house that they were in, and she goes horseback riding at night, and it was raining. And something weird happened. She ended up back at the house that her and Forge had been staying at, and she has no idea why. The roof was like collapsed, but something went through, like she fell through, then it fixed itself. And then this giant demon that looked like some type of bird and attacked Forge. And then it started talking to Storm, and it just left us on a cliffhanger. Like, what was this all about? And now, this, when it comes to the title of episode 4 called Life, Death, Part 1. So, obviously, Part 2 is going to explain, but weird things are going to happen. So, let's start with some topics. Let's start with Storm. Now, I think she will get her mutant powers. I believe that what happened, I think it did reverse it. Now I think her DNA is rebuilding. So it just hasn't kicked in yet. Because it was somewhat like neutralized. Deformed. So now all these DNA specks in her body's slowly but surely going back to it. It's filling that missing spot that was taken away. But I think in part 2, when it's like do or die battle, I think her powers are going to activate and Storm will be Storm. And what I like about this is very interesting. I like that in both between Storm and Jubilee, in their own way, they're maturing and growing. Like, obviously, Jubilee's got a lot to learn, but I think this was like Storm's final life lesson. Because I think a lot of these characters are going to be replaced with new characters in this X-Men 97 animation series if they continue to do more seasons with this, which I'm hoping. And so this is kind of like she'll learn something and then she'll ride off to the sun. They may kill her off, or she may, go to Wakanda. I don't know, but I think we're getting to the end of certain OG X-Men characters and in the animation, but the live action is totally different. That's why I can kind of just come up with these theories on this, or predictions. Now let's talk about Jubilee now. As I was saying, Jubilee, this whole episode is about learning, growing, and maturing. She just learned her life lesson that, okay, you're 18 now, you're an adult. Like, life's going to hit you a lot harder now because you're not a kid no more. Like, life's going to be extra more dangerous to you than it ever was. And Magneto is just trying to be a mentor, but he was a little too harsh about it. But in a way, he was right about what he said. Like, she should be focusing on getting better at her mutant powers, where she can become very powerful in the sense, so she can be on an elite level of mutant power. How do I feel about Roberto and her hooking up? Not surprised. Really not surprised. I kind of saw that coming since episode 1. But I'm okay with that. I mean, X-Men's always been like a soap opera, drama, like superhero cartoon show for kids. Seriously. It's like watching your mom or grandma's soap opera shows. Like that's what it was to me. Uh, I have a theory I just want to share with the older version of Jubilee. I have a theory that she's from the future or she's from a different multiverse. And I believe she's from, I bet you, this older version, I believe in theory that she comes from the Marvel's What If series. I believe that in season 3 of Marvel What If, they'll have something about Jubilee, and I believe they'll do this version of her. Because I believe that Mojo, which I'll get more into him, created like he accesses the multiverse some way, somehow through science and technology. And obviously, the easy answer could be a quantum realm because of Ant-Man and in the Wasp Quantumania movie, Kang the Conqueror, Avengers Endgame. So the quantum thing is a thing for scientists, and Mojo's kind of in that category for science instead of power. But even though he's a mutant, but mutants, I keep saying mutant powers, but it's really more mutant ability. That's just they were just born with this thing, and so I think some way somehow he entered the multiverse. So that's why I think, in theory, I believe the older version of Jubilee is from a different Earth, and this could be the Jubilee from the MCU 616 possibly, and I can see that happening. But that's just a theory. Now, my second theory I want to share, which is the next topic, Mojo. I'm really glad they brought him back. I believe that this is a character that should not be killed off. I think this is a character that they can use in the live action for sure. Because in a way, he somewhat breaks the fourth wall, but he just doesn't communicate looking at the screens. But he'll mention like TV ratings or something about Fox like he did back in the day. Like just something to say, ooh, that's how we think. Like he's like a mark. He's the guy on the internet. He's the Cody Rhodes crybabies, right? No. I'm just kidding, everybody. Shout out to, I'm a big fan of Cody Rhodes, but that's how they portrayed him. Like, but he's a guy who went from tweeting, crying about something, but with mutant powers, and he can actually handle his own business and try to fix it in his own way. Like he's just a weird, nerdy guy, realistically. So I believe he found a way to go to the multiverse through video games, which is totally fine with me. I can live with that. Maybe it's not quantum, but it's a video game effect. Because how did he get all such and such? So he's been practicing on other Jubilees, variants of her in different Earths. So maybe this isn't the older version, or this could be the Jubilee from the Fox version, and maybe the actor who played Jubilee in the X-Men series, or I think it was the movie X-Men 2. It was by the actor Kia Wong. Like she could come back and play the older version of that and pass the torch to if they choose to recast Jubilee in the live action MCU. But that's just a theory. Now I haven't heard anything about her for years, so I don't know what she's doing. But I think that would be cool. And yeah, she's only, I believe, 28 is how old Kia Wong now. So she's not old, so they could still use her, but it would be an idea to do an older version. But, that's just one theory I have. Now let's get to the next topic, which is Mojo. Now I said earlier that I think he accessed the multiverse like through through the video game. And obviously I think more on that theory, I just wanted to put out that I think that he's the guy, or the guy that if you're going to do another season of Marvel What If season 3, he'd be a villain you want to put in just because I know they've been teasing that this show can tie into Marvel What If, and I think in theory this is them planting the seeds of things like that to happen, because I think this is going to be the X-Men animation series that we kind of just fantasize happening since the MCU's been around. And now I think they're going, off the wall, but gonna surprise us with surprises that we could not imagine. And I thought this episode was so interesting just because of all these multiverse reference. Like, we always knew that, for obvious reasons, that how Doctor Strange or like Scott Lang, Ant-Man, could go through different multiverse in their own way, which is either science or magic. But it'd be interesting to see how Mojo did it. Maybe there's a third version to do this. Well, not third. Well, yeah, third. But I think it would be cool. But the way they planted this makes sense. And I think this could canonize a lot of things. And like I said, I'm going back to them, killing off the OGs of the X-Men with this theory as well. Because if you notice, in Forge's house, you see like an old picture of another group version of the X-Men. And he's been saying that Charles Xavier is a really close friend, and he owes him everything that he's done for him. So that really connects to me with that. So this episode to me was very multiverse. And I think it's just leading up to something big. And I just wonder what it could be. But again, the one thing I see is them passing the torch with that. So that's just my theory. Now, what I liked about this episode is I just like the 90s nostalgia and the callbacks. And the reason why I think it's better than episode 3 is because this one makes sense, and you can kind of see where they could go with this and what could be. But I still like episode 3, but I like episode 4 a lot more than episode 3. But episode 3 was still good enough where I accept it for what it is. So please don't think I'm hating on that. And I want to be surprised and I want to be shocked. So, use the twists and turns and plot twist on me with this. But this one, to me, as an episode, the story was pretty well balanced out. It stayed on topic, and it made its point. And, it has you asking questions like, how did that men97, I should say, get in her room? Was it Magneto? Did he put that in there? Was it somebody who's a mole, a rat, a snitch within the X-Men mansion giving, Mojo's the details, the info? I don't know. There could be a thing. And it made me think, like, is this all Mystique's plan to help Magneto? Or maybe to take him down? Maybe she's upset that he's the new leader of the X-Men, and maybe she saw what he did on television to the UN, and maybe she's mad. Maybe she's like had enough of his shit. And I think she's going to get out for revenge, because she might not know if Magneto is planning or something, or is he a changed man. But whatever it is, she's upset. And I think she's out for revenge. So this could be a Mystique thing, and she's probably just using Mojo to get the job done. But obviously he failed. So there's a lot that could happen, but I think the main thing so far, I'm getting out of 4 episodes, is the multiverse, the future, so basically time traveling, and passing of the torches. And I think this episode kind of, to me personally, makes that very clear. Of those are the 3 things that they keep hinting. Because another thing is, everybody keeps saying in their own way, my X-Men to my X-Men. Mojo said something just like that. So there, whose X-Men is this? Is the big question. And I think it's the new generation, the next generation of mutants who take on the mantle. But other than that, if I had to give this episode 1 out of 10, I'm definitely giving it a 10. Fun, action-packed, fun ride. I wish it was longer. If you look on it, each episode is like 33 minutes. This one was 30 minutes. So they took 3 minutes off of it. Why? I don't know. But I wish this episode was longer, but this is a part 1. So I'm really excited for part 2. So I'm giving it a straight 10 again because it was fun. It was exciting. It took me on a roller coaster. Had me at the edge of my seat. And I just love the 90s throwbacks in this thing. So thank you so much for listening to my review. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Great Talking Entertainment official channel. Subscribe. Hit that notification button so you can always be updated with all my latest content. Thank you guys, and peace.